So I'm just heating up 1.5 gallons of milk. This was mostly skimmed and a few days old. So now I'm just heating it up to 86 degrees in my stainless steel pot. And then in just a little bit, once it hits that, we're going to add some of the mesophilic culture. Okay, so I'm pretty sure our milk is 86 degrees. I just turned the heat off. It was at like 84 just like a minute ago. So we're making sure it's warm enough. Yep, so we are at 80, almost 90 degrees. So I'm going to move these biscuits. Okay. So now it's time for us to add our culture. So for the culture, I've been using the Cultures for Health brand. I really like it. It comes with rennet tablets too. This is the mesophilic. So for feta, use a mesophilic culture. It comes with these 4 little packets. This is 1.5 gallons. So usually a packet's for about 1 gallon of milk. So we're just gonna see how it turns out. So I'm gonna open our packet. And it says to just sprinkle it over your milk. Sprinkle it over. And it says to let it rehydrate for a minute. So we're just gonna let that hydrate for 1 minute. I've got a timer up there for something else, so I'm just gonna use that. Okay, so we've let that hydrate for a minute. So now we're gonna stir this for 30 seconds. I'm doing like an up and down motion because we want to make sure we get that culture throughout all of the milk. So this is the bacteria that's going to eat the lactose and culture that milk to start turning it into cheese. Almost done with the stirring. Okay, here we go. Now we're gonna keep that at 86 degrees for 1 hour. So I'm gonna put the lid on. The way I keep it warm is I'm going to fill up this sink in here that I've bleached. I'm gonna fill it up with warm water. So wait for it to get warm. And then that is going to help keep our milk warm. And you don't want this water to be hot. You want it to be just barely warm because we want this water to be around 86 degrees so that we can keep our milk at 86 degrees. And I just like to make sure that my water level is around the same as my milk level. So that's perfect. Our water's coming up to make sure that we're covering the sides of the pot that have milk, touching it so that we can keep it nice and warm. And then throughout that hour, I'm gonna just keep checking the water, make sure it's the right temperature. I'll get my thermometer out and put it in there. Just to make sure we're keeping it around 86. I don't want to mess with the milk too much. You can like take your temperature from the milk, but I don't want to open it too much and bother it. So I'm just going to take the temperature of the water and make sure it's around 86 or a little bit above 86. Our milk sat for an hour with the culture in it. So now we are going to prepare our rennet to mix in with our milk. This is the animal rennet from the New England Cheese. Let's get it to focus. Cheese Making Supply Co. I've used it a lot now and I like it. Works well. So we're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more. The recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon for a gallon, so I do a little bit more since we have 1.5 gallons. Now I'm gonna do some bottled water because it needs to be not chlorinated. That's 1/2 cup of, or 1/4 cup, sorry, of cool non-chlorinated water. Just gonna stir that up. Now we're gonna go take this to mix into our milk that is still in the warm water bath, and I'm gonna check the temperature as well. Our milk is still right at like 85, 86 degrees. So that's still perfect. So we are just gonna go ahead and mix in our rennet. So I'm gonna prop that up. Okay, so I'm gonna mix in that diluted rennet. I'm just gonna pour it in. I'm gonna use my scoop to stir it around. Ignore my toddler that's yelling in the background. So I'm just stirring this in with an up and down motion. We don't want to overdo it, but we want to make sure it's nice and distributed all the way through the milk. I added a little bit more warm water because the water on the outside of the pot was getting pretty cool, just room temperature. So I added a little more warm water to it. So now we're just going to let this sit for another 45 minutes. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. So we are going to check and see if we get a clean break. Yep, so that's a clean break. So I'm gonna move this to the stovetop just so it's a little higher, and we're gonna cut it into cubes. So that was our 10-minute timer. So now over the next 20-30 minutes, we're just gonna stir this. So our curds have healed a little bit over that 10 minutes. You can see some of them are a little bit bigger, so I'm just gonna cut them a little bit with my spoon. And then we're just gonna very gently stir this over the next 20-30 minutes. So until about noon, I'm just gonna stir this. And then I've got a colander set over a big bowl with some cheesecloth in it that we're gonna strain it in. So all that's set up and ready. So now I'm just stirring to let the curds shrink up and shed some of their whey. Okay, so we have stirred our curds for 25 minutes. And they look pretty shrunken. So now I'm gonna pour them into this bowl that has a colander with some cheesecloth on top. It'll be a little bit messy and a little tricky, but whatever way works best for you, you can do that. And I'm gonna be using this whey to make ricotta in just a moment, so I want to make sure I get all the chunks out, because if you're making ricotta with your whey, you have little chunks of like cheese that you didn't get out of the pot, they'll be like rubbery, so you don't want to have those in your whey when you're making ricotta. this straight up out of the way. Let it drain a little bit. I'm just gonna let that drain a little bit back into that pot. Made a huge mess, of course. Now you want to find a good spot to hang your cheese curds. So I'm going to just tie this a little, make sure I've got all my ends tucked in. I don't want to have like a big hole like that in it just because it's summertime and flies come in every time we open the door. So I'm going to make sure I've got all of these ends together. Tie these in a tiny, tiny little knot. You can hear the kids in the background being crazy. Okay, so I'm just going to tie this one more time, and then I'm going to tie this over the sink. So I just am going to tie this over my faucet. You can put it over a, tie it to like a spoon and then hang that between your cabinet knobs or something like that. That works really well. And then that's just going to drain for me to catch the whey and feed that to animals, use it for ricotta, and for the crust to dry out. And then you're good. So I'll join you back when I'm straining this in about 8 hours. gonna try it. Well, that is super good. It crumbles really well. I did not use non-chlorinated water when I put it in the brine, so mine actually still melted a little bit even with the calcium chloride in there. So just make sure you're using non-chlorinated water for your brine, some salt, and then I usually do that squirt of calcium chloride. But it's really good. And then obviously if you take it out of the brine or you store it not in a brine, it's going to crumble a little bit more. I usually leave mine in a brine and then freeze it, and then later I pour the brine off, and then just use it to crumble. But even with it from the brine, it still has a nice little crumble to it. It spreads really easy. Super yummy. My kids like when I marinate it. I usually marinate it with some olive oil, salt, rosemary, oregano, red pepper flakes, and they really love that. And they'll just eat it plain by itself. It's too spicy for me, but then my husband will just sit there and like snack on it. So this is a good recipe. You can definitely like marinate it, season it, doctor it up however you want, put some roasted tomatoes on there with it. But it's really versatile. I think it's really good on salad. Let me know if y'all try it out. But this is the recipe I use, and I feel like it works really well. It makes really good, reliable feta. So yeah.